Otarg, our friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for another Orc Mode workout. And a quick reminder for those of you who enjoy these videos, please click like down below, help me keep the likes higher than the dislikes. And today we are rotating into my new system. Now I've debated as to whether I'm going to do this with 3s or 5s. And I'm actually going to have a couple of my clients experiment with it with 5s because they're interested in doing so, and so we're going to mess with some of it for them. I decided to go ahead and do 3s. There's a whole lot of reasons why I can do 3s at 85%. And I'll probably do that for a little while. And it's stuff that I can discuss later as I do it as to specifically why 3s, how many total sets using Prelipin's chart, how to determine how much means that we're ready to PR, so on and so forth. And that's a very nuanced topic. But yeah, I'll do triples at 85%. And keeping in mind, my 85% is not the 85% of someone who doesn't max out. Okay? A lot of guys estimate their wonder at max based on rep work and then recalculate it off that. We're doing actual maxes. We're doing actual maxes, so it's going to be percentages of the true tested maxes. Speed work went good today. The first couple sets were a little slow, kind of got into my groove, and then knocked it out. And what I'm going to do with the speed work as I'm doing all this stuff, speed work is going to be very specific to my weak points and needs at any given time. In other words, I can just rotate bars. I don't need to run waves per se, because the standard week one of the waves without even running them is actually quite perfect the way Louise Simmons wrote it out, especially with bands, as long as you move fast enough. And the reason I honestly believe he does the 3-week waves is so, again, people don't get bored so that it looks nice and complex and people don't feel like they're doing the same thing. But instead of running waves, we could rotate bars, do whatever we need to do week to week. If you're still running at the percentages of your max, you're getting the maximum dynamic effort component, right? If you're running 50% of your true max with 25% band tension and doing 12 doubles, let's say on the squat, and you're using the appropriate bar and box height for your current max. In my case, I actually use 1 inch lower, and it lights my quads up more. You're going to get an enormous training response in terms of dynamic effort work with that without rotating that in any way. It's very effective. And again, I haven't tested the new safety squat bar. I might have considered using that one today because I know I need the upper back. You know, I've got multiple barbells that I can do these with that I've now tested. I know how to hook up bands. I have my band tension sorted. But it was 12 doubles today. And so what we're going to do, we're going to keep them at 12 doubles. It's going to be 24 total reps. 24 total reps, and these are all effective reps. And then because I'm using bands for the speed pulls, I'm only going to do 6. So it's going to end up being 30 lower body lifts. Okay, 30 lower body lifts. And that's what we have to remember when people might look at some of the supplemental work the way I'm going to do it in the system. They might say, well, the volume seems a hair low. Not when you look at effective reps and you consider that we've always done maxes or speed work first. In other words, look at the amount of speed work being done. These are all effective reps. In theory, we would grow off of this. In other words, the speed squats and speed pulls I did today, hypothetically speaking, should cause some muscle growth on their own, if this is all I did and just stopped. Okay? So when I do stuff like saying, okay, my minimum is 3 sets of 3 and the optimal is 5 sets of 3, and trying to get to 6 sets of 3 means that we're strong enough to PR. And that's true. If you can take 85% of your actual max, okay, 85% of your actual max, not your estimated max, whatever extrapolations people come up with, oh, I think this is what my max would be. Yeah, whatever, dude. These are real maxes. You can do 6 triples with, 3-minute breaks. You can probably PR that max, especially when they're fatigued. I'm not going to do any of them fresh. And that's kind of the major point. We're fatigued going into them. 3 sets of 3 is relatively hard. It's relatively hard. It's challenging with a true max, right, with 85% of it. But back over to the speed work. These went pretty well. My hips and my quads were absolutely crushed by this. And that's one of the things I'm noticing, definitely the way I'm doing the system these days. My quads are getting so much work, especially because of the sled drags. And no, and I'm going to keep telling people again, I'm not interested in filming my GPP. Okay? This is the hard work. The GBP isn't hard. The GBP is boring. There's nothing technical. I don't feel like trying to set up stuff to film it because I break it up into a couple sessions. Okay? It's multiple sessions spread out. I'm just not interested. I tell you guys what I do for GPP. You can either accept that or not. I'm not interested in showing me dragging a sled around and dealing with people stealing my camera and risking breaking cameras trying to drag it out instead of focusing on getting my work done. Same thing with my loaded carries. Okay? There's no need. The fact that my grip strength will be going up should be proof enough that I'm obviously doing the loaded carries. All right? Because they're actually part of my grip training at this point. But people keep asking, and I just don't care. No. Nope. I'll change my mind. Send me $5,000 and I'll film one of my GPP sessions. There we go. There's my contingency. See, when you do stuff like that, people get mad, but then, it's like, well, you want me to do something I don't want to do, but then you don't want to pay me. That's not how this works. That's not how the world works. So, over to the speed pulls. I messed around with it and realized I can get into a pretty good sumo position a little bit more now that I've gotten a lot better at doing those deeper boxes. It feels like it's helping my hip mobility to some extent. The first rep was a little meh, but the later reps, because I've ramped up and then got it really good with the bands with the lighter plates, but then when I added the next, whatever, 150 pounds on, the first rep was off a little bit. But I'm finding, because I'm doing a very similar to really my mobility of sumo stance off those deep boxes now, I feel like I can get a little more pop. So let's do some sumo speed pulls. And again, it's an issue of putting my pelvis in the right position and then rolling under and pulling. And people can argue, well, it looks like this or that. Really, I think you should go watch some world record holding sumo pullers. I think you should watch them before you discuss what you don't like about my hip position. Okay? That's the problem with people critiquing other people's form who really don't know what they're talking about. Right? And that's what I would say. Before you critique someone's form on a big lift, go watch at least 12 different people who hold world records or top 5 world records in that lift and see what their technique looks like. At least 12 different ones. That's your minimum. Then think through what you saw there, people who are uninjured breaking world records, and then discuss other people's form. And I think that's a good minimum for you to look at before you decide if someone has good form or not. Right? I think that's reasonable. So these went pretty well. They went decently fast once I kind of got in the groove, got my 6 pulls. And after that, we got into the hard stuff. Triples with 85%. And yes, guys, I'm going to have no trouble gaining muscle and all this. And we've discussed a lot of it in the past. We've discussed some of the stuff about the tension stuff, effective reps, everything else. If you've paid attention, even though you guys have watched me do high volume, high reps, right? You've watched me do all those things. I've paid my dues. Okay, how many people you see doing sets of 20 with 275 on good mornings? Doing 5 sets of 20 on a glute ham raise. Yeah, come on. I've paid my dues. But at this point, there's a lot of reasons why I want the higher mechanical tension, heavier loading. And I'm going to use basically assistance movements to increase everything. Assistance movements to increase assistance movements. And leave a few really, really key movements in. There'll be a small bit of single joint stuff as necessary, particularly my band stuff, like for rear delts, triceps. I'm going to do tons of tricep band press downs. My abs. Reverse hypers, I'm still going to live and die on those. We're going to see a whole lot of basically assistance movements being done for triples with accumulating volume, working off percentages. Okay, we're going to work off percentages, and we're going to keep those percentages heavy. It's not going to be, let's run at 80% and try to get to 10 triples. And anyone who stands there and says silly stuff like, 10 triples with 90% is delusional. Okay? You can't do it. Best of luck to you. Alright? You might do a bunch of singles at 90%. So, we went over to this, and I rounded up. When I did the calculations based upon that deficit pull, because I've lost a little bit of deadlift strength. And I know why. We've discussed why. And we'll fix it real fast. My deadlift will shoot way back up. I calculated off that. It came to like 497. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing 497. I'm going to put 500 on the bar. I don't care. Now, if it was one of my clients, I'd be yelling at them. But you know what? I'm writing my own programming and percentages. Reality can be whatever I want it to be. So I went with the 500 even. So we have those little greens instead of the microplates. I got it as you get 4 triples. I'm like, okay, that's it. After doing all the speed work, I'm like, that's it. It's going to be a bit before this is ready. It's going to be just a little bit before I can take this to that bleeding edge with the accumulated triples. And you guys notice the first rep every time I stick at my sticking point? Everyone catch that? I notice in all 4 of the sets. It's a grinder. The first rep looks harder than the third. It's a tightness issue. It's a setup issue. Because once I pulled the first one, I'm able to kind of just stay tight and pull it all in. So it's a case of I need to work on that tightness. Because right there, you notice it sticks just below the knee. Right, a little bit past the mid-shin, right there usually. Again, this audio may not time perfect. But what ends up happening with that is it's a tightness issue. So it's going to have to be resolved. I'm going to have to get all these first reps in, and that's good because we'll get to practice the setup. And I'm not going to lie, after doing all that other work, good mornings are going to be tough because I'm always going to do good mornings. Probably as a second exercise after doing other stuff after max or speed work on top of it. These are going to be really hard, especially with a brand new max that is the heaviest I've ever good morning. Trying to do triples with 85%. Oh my God. These were so heavy. For those curious, it's 455. And people keep asking, what are you doing with the workouts? It's all listed below. Like, if you guys want to know how much weight I'm using for how many reps and how many sets, it's actually in the description box on these training sessions. So some people aren't aware of that, and they start asking those questions when it's actually written out for you. It's all there, guys. These were so hard. Oh, my God. But it wasn't that long ago when I hadn't even tried to max anything over 400, over 405 on a good morning. Now we're doing 535 for a max, and 3x3 with 455 was tough. I think mainly because like my quads and stuff and even my mid back are just so beat up at this point. We got in and did it, but you know, here's the other thing. Look at this from an effective rep perspective. Let's set aside all the crazy speed work or even when we do max work. All right, 4x3 on a deficit deadlift. That percentage, people need to understand, those are all effective reps. Okay, those are all effective reps. That's like getting right up on the edge of failure with a 10 rep set in terms of the upper unit threshold, right? So if we have 12 effective reps, a set to all out failure only has 5 effective reps. Okay, that means those deadlifts alone were equal to 2 sets to failure and 1 set stopping a little bit short. It's still an effective set. Really, they're equal to pretty much quality work sets to where you stop a rep or 2 short of failure on just the effective reps. It doesn't matter about the total number of reps because most of your reps on a 10 rep set don't have a stimulating effect. Or on a 15 rep, you're not actually growing from those. So when we look at it from Prelipin's chart, we look at effective reps. It's all pretty dang good. And keeping in mind though, your 1 rep maxes and stuff contribute to that. And if I'm doing 2 maxes or a bunch of speed work, this is a very high hypertrophy workout today. When you look at the speed work and then you throw the other stuff in, this is actually a very stimulating workout in terms of total hypertrophy. if you look at the effective rep theory. And then we get into the whole argument of how much mechanical tension applies. There are people who still feel mechanical tension is more important than volume. Like, that is a point of debate. And I generally have agreed that volume is a primary driver. There are experts who disagree with that. And I want that to be very, very, very clear. All right, that is not settled science. Then I did triples with these, and these were pretty easy at first. And it's like, so the final set when I got to the 6th set, I went and did 4. A 25-pound plate for these is not that bad because I've been doing 5 sets of 10 with a 10-pound plate. So I need to build up with this and then get to where I just grab a 45. It's going to be a little hard to grab. I might be able to grab one of those 10-pound black ones that are the same size and do it with this. I might be able to do that. I'll have to experiment. It's going to be hard to make a 20-pound jump. But again, this is all done on the back end of the other stuff. It's all done on the back side of the other stuff. And keeping in mind, we can argue all you want about, well, you can't maximize growth on triples. Well, the research says that you absolutely can. Now, what I want to state, what I'm doing here is hard, and it's hard on your body. Okay? And I want to make that very, very, very clear. This is not a training style that you can do if you have form issues. Like, if you round your back on a good morning because you don't know how to hinge at the hip, you round your low back on squats. Okay? You let the bar drift above your face on the bench press. You're not going to be able to train this way for long. You're going to accrue injuries and overuse problems real fast. If you're not willing to rotate exercises, that's going to be part of the key too, because I'm going to be rotating exercises a lot to avoid overuse. Then I got to the reverse hypers. They went well. This first set, I realized it was too light with 460. I'm like, I need to go up. So I went up to 475. I'm counting it as 5x10 with 475 because I managed to squeeze out 15. They were hard. That's all I had. I managed to squeeze out 15 on the final set. And these are doing them about as strict as you're going to do them. Anyone who's like, well, I think I could do them stricter. No, you actually can't. Like, film yourself. Trust me, you can't. Because if you do one rep and try to control it on the way down, and then you get out, it's going to keep swinging a few inches. That thing is going to stand there and swing for a minute straight. Okay, you have a good one of these with bearing. So there's going to be a little bit of swing. I'm following the rules Louis Simmons gives for how to control that swing and how to tell if it's too much. Okay, so I'm going to have to bump these to 500 next time and then work with 500 and see what we can do from there. I don't know. I could run into plate issues real quick because I don't have enough of the thin. I only have 10 of the thin 45s, the actual calibrated plates. Also, we look at this and people want to stand there and talk smack about fake weights and all this other stuff. And they're like, oh, you must have used fake weights on these movements that use your legs and back. Watch me climb into this thing and stop and look. Stop and look when I'm up there at the size of my waist relative to all the back musculature and leg musculature. Just stop there for a moment and think that through. I'm not claiming to have whatever attractive physique you guys like to jerk off to or any of that, because I'm not into that. But stop and look for a moment. Saw the back. Look at my hamstrings and calves and quads. And then look at the fact that these are all calibrated, high-end, rogue competition legal plates. Okay? If you're not grasping it at this point, you probably need mental help if you actually think that I'm using fake weights. But overall, good workout. Happy with it. It was hard, so I hope it's been informative. And I will talk to you guys next time.